So the time is 11:36, and I call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Gonzalez is going to put up a flag, I believe. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
Madam President, I move the agenda is public.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Livin, seconded by Mr. Morales. All in favor? Aye.
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 Item passes unanimously. Item 2.01, presentation to the board. Mr. Thompson, you're on.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, on the new one, it looks like it's been disabled again, Darren.
Yep, I just fixed it. You should be able to do it now.
Okay, there we go. Share screen. All right. All right. So I got a little presentation, and then I'll be bouncing back and forth. We can go into the actual AFR files if you'd like, and I'm specifically going to do that for the school level reporting because I don't think it translated well to the PDF. All right. So first of all, this is for the annual financial report. The state requires us to submit it by October 15th. And so based on the breaks and fall break and the timing of everything, we needed this special meeting because there was no way I was going to get it ready by September 21st. And if we waited until next week's, it'd be after the deadline. So I think this was the time that worked best for everyone. So the AFR is the annual financial report, or what I will just call the AFR everything. And the other ones kind of offshoots of that that have a little more detail, like the DSEG AFR, the food service AFR. All of these are kind of recorded in there. Results-based funding is essentially just which schools got results-based funding. What did you use the money on? What we used the money on was teacher pay. That's all it was, essentially. And then the COVID-19 expense reporting, that is a new thing that they've had, and we'll go into some detail on that one. So I'm not going to go on the presentation into every individual number because there's a bunch of them, but for the ones that kind of stood out to me that said, okay, this is going to maybe raise some questions and needs to be explained, that's what I'm going to really add on here. So I'll first say that some of these comparabilities on year to year are going to be a little weird because some years you might have had more expenses into the COVID funds, such as the Enrollment Stabilization Grant or ESSER 1, 2, and 3. And then other years you don't. So it might look like there's a big decrease or increase. When those expenses are still there, they're just in different buckets. So you might have a large decrease or increase in the M&O line because that expense or those people are still there, but now they're in a different spot, or vice versa. In ESSER last year, and now they've come back to M&O. So it looks like there's a large increase, and it's just kind of the money moving around a little bit. So one of the first ones on the main page, the M&O page of the AFR, it's page 2. Regular educational and instructional expenses appear to have decreased 10%. That was because we moved a lot of teacher expenses into ESSER 3 for continuity of services. So it's not like, so this is the example of it looks like we decreased spending in there, but it's really just in a different bucket. So overall, we're going to have a good bit of carryover in M&O because we moved got 40 teachers worth of expenses into ESSER for continuity of services. So with the decreasing class sizes, to keep the same number of classes and to keep the class sizes small, we've moved some expenses into ESSER to keep those rooms there open. More on that page, general admin expenses. That's going to be the one, that showed a 24% increase. So if you look at the FY, do you guys see my mouse if I'm moving it around? Okay, so you see the 24% increase here. Looks like that increase is a good bit, but it's more due to FY21 being kind of artificially lower. And so this is the 21 one. And so you see the 450,000, 450,000. So this is the prior year. And the year before that, it was 950,000. So some of the reasons for that, that's the line where superintendent is recorded. And in Chris Bush's final year, she took a much lower salary because she did the ESI retirement thing. So that decreased the costs a lot. FY20 also, so why this was so much bigger than 950,000. We had 160,000 in election expenses in that year. That was the year that the 2019 overrides would have been on the ballot. So it looks like a lot of year-to-year fluctuation. And so that's kind of why I'm trying to explain where this is coming from. So it looks like a big increase, but in comparison to 20, it's still very low. The big difference for this year from last year is Chris Bush took, a lot lower because of the phase retirement aspect. So. And then more on that page, maintenance and operation and maintenance of plant looks like a large increase. So you can see the 23% here. That's because we had moved a lot of utilities into ESSER in the previous years. So if you look at, this is the FY22 amount, and then FY21 is the 7.5 million. Well, really in FY20, it was 8.5 million. So if you looked at it staggered like that, it shouldn't be that much of an increase. Utility rates have gone up. We've, using more of it because we have more people in buildings than we had in previous years. But we had moved a lot of expenses of this 7.5 million. A lot of that is because we had moved water and sewer and some electric over into ESSER. So it's not as large of an increase as it might look to be. All right, some of the other differences on that page: school-sponsored athletics increased 45%. It's not a huge number to begin with, so changes can look like a lot larger percentage, but that's just due to basically we were open all year versus being closed previous years. We didn't have as much athletics going on. Same thing with the pupil transportation. It's a lot cheaper to, you don't spend as much money when you're not running the buses. So fuel costs, maintenance, everything like that. When you compare it to the previous year, we were able to, we did spend a lot, but it's more because of those other years being artificially lower due to closures for COVID than us having higher than normal costs. They're higher than last year costs. And then the carryover. So like I had said, we have been able to move a good bit of teacher salaries into ESSER to maintain continuity of services. So that's freeing up about $7 million for carryover. So that $7 million will help us absorb increases and any potential cuts, well, not any, but part of potential cuts from the aggregate expenditure limit. That part, the rollover part is not impacted by that, by the AEL. All right, page 3 is pretty much all classroom site funds. So funding there increased pretty significantly, and that's because the funding increased pretty significantly. So you see that 37% increase, really I could round it up to 38, I guess. But that's because it's all paid through sales tax as the funding source, and when the state has more, and the state has been having a good bit of sales tax the last few years, we've had a good bit, and so that's why we were able to move a lot more money into the performance pay, into the base, to get into the teacher's salaries. Most for this year, it was performance pay. That was $4,500. We've now moved some of that into the base. So that what makes me a little more comfortable. We've built up this balance of 1.6 million here for the carryover. Because it is paid through sales tax, it is a little volatile. And so because we moved some in, moved 2,000 more into the base, I like having that cushion there so that if the funding goes down from the state due to sales tax, we have a little bit to spend. We have a good bit to spend there before we have to look at other. it's I think it's safer to have a little bit of fund balance there at the end. All right, the COVID-19 expense. This is kind of a new thing that the state has been implementing, obviously, due to COVID. Let me move I can't see this side of it. My Zoom thing was covering some numbers there. So for this past year, FY22, almost $16 million of expenses. A good bit of that, if you remember, we gave $3,000 recruitment and retention stipends to all employees. So that was the largest chunk, about $6 million of that. Of that 16 million was that. And then I also said we had shifted some others to spend. So you can see there, the total amount to spend after the end of the year was about $18.5 million. So even though we did spend a good bit on those areas, we still have a large amount left in the ESSER categories. And a nice thing that we've been getting in this other COVID relief funds is Security has been giving us a lot of money for preschool programs. So that has basically kept those afloat, because we've got some partnerships with the city of Tempe and other things, but a lot of those preschool programs are funded through tuition. And when we had shutdowns due to COVID, that funding from DES has been able to keep, as we would have lost a lot of money in those spots. Some future budget items. Next week, the bond and override reports. I'll go do a presentation on that. That is an annual thing that happens every year. That has to be done between September 1st and October 30th. I will do that week. And then on your radar as well, budget revision. We're going to have to do that in December due to the enrollment being less than it was last year. So we're down 3 students from last year. So that's a good bit. And the budget is all formula based. So, or the funding is all formula based. We have our budget that we're spending, and that's why we have that carryover. Because of the funding going down, we're not going to have to cut anything, but we have to do a budget revision due to the decrease in the funding. So I can give you questions, but I wanted to show you real quick. Let me pop up. You guys still see this? Okay. So this is the school level reporting, and this is how it should have looked. I think you only got maybe this tab on there. So a lot of this is, I'll go through the tab, pretty much formula driven. You put in your school name, and then it pops in a lot of this information based on the data that we have and these calculations up here that ADE puts in. So the main thing that you'll want to look at, and I think we still have this, and the accounting data, this is straight from the general ledger. So this is thousands of lines. The more important thing, this is just kind of a different way that ADE wants to regurgitate the data, I guess. And then data entry, it kind of allocates it to the schools on here. But what you can do, and we've got the school component, so you can select specific schools. So if you wanted to look at Curry versus, well, this is in my way again, Curry versus food, you can see the different costs on there. And it breaks it down by basically all these different lines. And you can select multiple schools on here. So this would not translate well to a PDF because it's changeable for the user. But this will be the form that is uploaded to ADE, and this is the form that I sent to you guys once Mr. Lemon had informed me that all that came through was a pretty much unusable PDF. So you can take a look at that. So that's the school level reporting side. You can do a single school and then, select it that way. But that's just some new requirements that ADE has been sending out for us to do. Overall expenditures, M&O, 87 million, pretty comparable to previous years. Classroom sites fund, as I said, 7.3 million. That's gone up a good bit. And then capital, we've had a good bit of carryover, like 13-14 million in carryover for capital. And so we've been spending that down the last couple of years because we've needed some additional things a little sooner, like the earlier Chromebook refresh, because they all got beat up because everyone had taken them home and whatnot. So are there any questions on any of the various AFRs? Would you like me to bring up any of the specific files or anything I can answer?
Not seeing any questions, Mr. Thompson.
Great. That is the end of my presentation then. Let me get back here and stop sharing. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for the presentation and all the information, and especially showing us the spreadsheet. Thanks to Mr. Lemon notifying him about that. A little confused myself about it. So let's move to item 3.01, approval of the fiscal year 2021-2022 school district annual financial report. May I have a motion?
So moved, Monica.
Seconded.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Mr. Morales. All in favor? Aye.
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 And I think I see Mr. Lemon's. Okay, thank you. Item passes unanimously, Mr. Thompson. Item 3.02, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the Director of Data and Analytics position and the corresponding job description. I believe this is the job description that Dr. Driscoll put in his weekly update. Dr. Driscoll, do you have anything to add on this one? We can see you. We just can't hear you, Dr. Driscoll. The panic of a muting.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And sorry, it's here, and I'm looking at you on the screen here, so I'm not turning my face to you.
That's okay.
But yeah, so we've had the director of research and evaluation before in our district. Is not a new position. What we did is we looked at because the position is needed, and we made it more robust so we can actually attract the employees that we really want for that. Somebody with a data analytics background, because data is huge for our system, whether assessment data, whether survey data, whether even employee data. And so it is a crucial position that is needed in our system. And so job, we wanted to make sure that the board was aware and actually knew that this is one of the options that we wanted to do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Driscoll. Do I have a motion for this?
So moved, Monica.
And a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Mr. Lemon. All in favor? Aye.
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 Item passes unanimously. Item 4.01, meeting adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Monica.
Seconded.
Moved by Ms. Trejo and seconded by Mr. Morales. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. Virtual meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for being.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Darren, for helping with technology. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your patience, everybody.
Bye.